The U.S. is experiencing unprecedented political polarization, with Democrats and Republicans increasingly viewing each other as existential threats. A 2022 Pew Research study found that 85% of Americans believe political divisions are worsening, while Congress faces record low productivity due to partisan gridlock. Historical precedent, like the 1850s pre-Civil War era, suggests such extreme polarization often precedes institutional collapse. The 2021 Capitol riot exemplifies how rhetoric has escalated into violence, further eroding democratic norms. Trust in U.S. institutions has plummeted to historic lows. Gallup polls show only 27% trust the Supreme Court, down from 45% in 2000, while media distrust hits 58%. The 2008 financial crisis and COVID-19 mismanagement exacerbated skepticism. Case in point, local news deserts now cover 70 million Americans, leaving vacuums filled by misinformation. A Stanford study found 65% of voters doubt election integrity, a direct threat to democracy's foundation. The top 1% now control 32% of U.S. wealth, the highest since the 1920s Gilded Age, while median wages stagnate despite productivity rising 62% since 1979. The Federal Reserve reports 40% of Americans can't cover a $400 emergency. Cities like San Francisco showcase dystopian contrasts. Tech billionaires' skyscrapers loom over tent cities housing 160,000 homeless. This mirrors pre-revolutionary France's inequality levels per economist Thomas Piketty. The U.S. saw over 10,600 protests in 2020, a 67% spike from 2019, with 570 turning violent per ACLU data. Domestic terrorism cases hit a 25-year high, with 65% linked to far-right groups like the Proud Boys. The 2020 George Floyd protests caused $2 billion in damages, surpassing the 1992 LA riots. Historians note parallels to 1968's Unrest, but today's heavily armed militias, up 300% since 2015, raise unprecedented risks. Police departments face crisis-level attrition. NYPD saw 5,300 retirements in 2022, up 75% from 2020. Homicide clearance rates dropped to 50% versus 90% in 1965, while cities like Chicago report 911 response delays exceeding 1 hour. The Ferguson effect theory suggests proactive policing has collapsed. Meanwhile, prisons operate at 130% capacity, with gangs now controlling 60% of inmates per DOJ reports, breeding grounds for radicalization. A 2023 Reuters study found 40% of Americans have stopped speaking to family over politics, while 25% support state secession. Dating apps report 72% reject matches across party lines, up from 30% in 2016. Billionaire bunkers in New Zealand and gated communities with private armies proliferate. This mirrors Yugoslavia's pre-collapse ethnic divisions, warns sociologist Keith Payne in The Broken Ladder. The American Society of Civil Engineers gives U.S. infrastructure a C grade, noting 43% of roads are poor and 231,000 bridges need repair. Texas's 2021 grid collapse left 4.5 million without power, while Jackson, Mississippi's water crisis persists for 150,000 residents. Healthcare rankings place the U.S. 34th globally, behind Costa Rica, with rural hospital closures up 138% since 2005. These are hallmarks of late-stage empires, per historian Arnold Toynbee. U.S. life expectancy dropped to 76.4 years, lowest since 1996, with opioids killing 107,000 in 2022, equal to 9/11 deaths every 2 weeks. Mental health crises consume 25% of police time per NAMI, yet 60% of counties lack psychiatrists. Big Pharma's Purdue Pharma made $35 billion from OxyContin, while communities like Huntington, West Virginia, saw 1 in 10 babies born addicted. This parallels Rome's lead poisoning epidemic that eroded social cohesion. A record 9 million Americans now live abroad, up 66% since 2008, with 40% citing political instability. Silicon Valley relocations to Canada, Mexico doubled post-2020. Foreign job postings targeting U.S. talent surged 145%, while elite universities report 60% of international students refuse U.S. jobs. This mirrors 1930s Europe's intellectual flight from fascism. For sale signs now outnumber help wanted. In 80% of zip codes, a stark inversion of the American dream.